The first thing Elias Bourne noticed was the blood. It wasn't red, not exactly. It shimmered faintly blue, like moonlight caught in liquid form, pooling across the fractured stone floor of the canyon. It steamed where it touched the cold night air, releasing a sharp metallic scent that made his nose sting even through the filter of his breathing mask. He froze. The wastelands of Kepler, 186F, were not known for mercy. Anything wounded out here was either bait or already dead. Elias tightened his grip on the rifle slung across his chest and scanned the darkness. The canyon walls rose like jagged teeth, casting long shadows under the pale glow of the planet's twin moons. Wind howled through narrow crevices, carrying distant echoes that could have been predators, or just the planet reminding him how small he was. Then he saw her. She lay half-hidden beneath a slab of broken rock, armor shattered and scorched, one arm twisted at an unnatural angle. Her body was taller than any human woman he'd ever seen, built for war, long limbs, corded muscle, skin the deep obsidian black of polished stone. Faint bioluminescent markings traced her shoulders and throat, flickering weakly like dying stars. An alien warrior. And she was still breathing. Elias swallowed. Every briefing he'd ever sat through screamed the same warning. Do not engage unknown hostiles, especially wounded ones. The Volari Dominion, her people, he guessed, had been at war with the Terran coalition for over a decade. Their warriors were infamous, ruthless, unyielding, bound by secrets so deep they'd die before surrendering them. As if summoned by his thoughts, her eyes snapped open. They were gold, not soft or curious, but sharp, burning with pain and fury. She tried to move, failed, and let out a low, feral snarl that reverberated in her chest. Elias raised his free hand slowly, palm open. Easy, he said, though he knew she didn't understand his language. I'm not here to... She reached for something at her waist. A broken blade, half melted, fingers trembling. So much for easy. Elias could have stepped back, could have lifted his rifle and ended it. One clean shot. That was what the rules said. That was what survival demanded. Instead, he did something profoundly, stupidly human. He knelt. The warrior's eyes widened, not in fear, but confusion. She hissed through clenched teeth, clearly waiting for the killing blow. It didn't come. Elias slowly unclipped his medical pack and set it down where she could see it. He pointed to the wound in her side, a deep puncture, edges blackened by energy fire, then to the pack. Help, he said softly. I can help. Her grip on the blade tightened. The glow of her markings flared faintly, a reflexive response, like a cornered animal gathering its last strength. He could almost hear the thoughts racing behind those eyes. Trap. Deception. Weakness. She had been raised to believe humans were monsters. Maybe he had been raised to believe the same about her. Minutes stretched. The wind howled. Somewhere far away, something roared. Finally, her blade slipped from her fingers and clattered uselessly against the stone. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He moved carefully, every motion slow and deliberate. When he touched her armor, she flinched but didn't strike. He cut away damaged plating, revealing torn flesh beneath, warm, pulsing faintly with bioluminescence. The injury was bad. Infection had already begun to set in. You should be dead, he murmured, more to himself than to her. Her lips moved. She spoke, voice rough and low, words flowing in a harsh, musical cadence he couldn't understand. There was urgency in it. Command. Maybe a warning. He shook his head gently. I don't understand. But you don't have to tell me anything. She stared at him then, truly stared, as if trying to peel him apart layer by layer. Elias cleaned the wound as best he could, ignoring the way her muscles tensed under his hands. He injected a universal stabilizer, risky but better than nothing, and sealed the injury with biofoam. The blue blood slowed, then stopped. Her breathing steadied. When he finished, he sat back on his heels, exhausted. His hands were shaking. "Why?" she asked suddenly, this time in broken, heavily accented Terran standard. Elias blinked. You speak human?" "Enough," she replied. "Answer." He hesitated. There were 1,000 reasons he could give. Orders defied. Morals followed. Fear ignored. Instead, he chose the simplest truth. "Because you were dying." Her eyes narrowed. "And if I am your enemy?" "Then," he said quietly, "you're still alive." Something shifted in her expression. Not trust. Not gratitude. Uncertainty. He helped her sit up against the rock, offering water she cautiously accepted. She studied the canteen, then him, as if expecting poison, betrayal, something. "You should have taken my secrets," she said after a long pause. Elias frowned. "Your what?" "My knowledge," she said. "My rank. My mind." She tapped her temple. "I carry information worth worlds. Humans torture for less." He felt a flash of anger at that, not at her, but at the truth in her words. "I'm not here for that." "Liar," she said flatly. "Maybe," he admitted, "but not about this." Silence fell between them again. The moons crept higher in the sky. Her name, he learned later, was Caliph of the Ashen Blades, a warrior caste sworn to the Volari Empress herself. She had been part of a covert strike force sent to sabotage a coalition relay. Something had gone wrong. An ambush. Friendly fire. She hadn't said which. She also didn't say what secret she carried. They moved at dawn. Elias fashioned a crude sling for her injured arm and supported her weight as they navigated the canyon. She was heavier than she looked, denser somehow, each step a strain. More than once, he expected her to collapse or turn on him. She did neither. By midday, coalition drones appeared overhead. Caliph stiffened instantly, muscles coiling despite her injuries. "Leave me," she said. "They will kill you for aiding me." Elias glanced at the sky, then back at her. "They'll kill you anyway." "Exactly." He shook his head. "I didn't drag you this far to quit now." "You are foolish," she said. "And you still do not ask what I know." He met her gaze. "If you want to tell me, you will. If not, that's your choice." Her markings pulsed faintly, erratically. For the first time since they met, her voice wavered. "You would risk your life for an enemy who offers you nothing?" He thought of Earth, of endless wars fought over information, power, fear. "Maybe that's the problem," he said. "Everyone's always waiting to be paid for doing the right thing." They reached an abandoned research outpost just as night fell again, a relic from humanity's early expansion days. The power was dead, but the walls were intact. Safe for now. Elias lit a small heater and checked her wound. It was healing slowly but clean. "You should know," Caliph said suddenly, staring into the flickering light, "that my death would have changed this war." He paused. "How?" She turned to face him fully. Her golden eyes burned with something like sorrow. "I am bound to the Empress by blood and mind. Through me, she sees. Through me, she commands." Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. "You're a link." "A living conduit," she said. "If I die, that connection shatters. The Volari would descend into chaos. And if you live, she remains whole." The weight of it settled over him like a storm cloud. He could have let her die, could have ended a war, saved millions, maybe. He hadn't. Caliph watched him carefully, waiting for regret, for anger, for the moment he realized his mistake. Instead, he exhaled slowly. Then I guess I saved more than one life. Her eyes widened just a fraction. You are either the bravest human I have ever met, she said softly, or the most dangerous. Why not both, he said with a tired smile. When coalition forces finally found the outpost, they found it empty. Elias and Caliph were already gone, vanished into the wilderness, heading not toward human territory, but Valari space. Months later, the war ended. Not with a final battle or devastating weapon, but with a single transmission broadcast across both empires. Caliph stood beside the Valari Empress, alive and unbroken. Elias stood with her unarmed. They spoke of mercy, of choice, of a human who saw an enemy dying and chose kindness instead of victory. History would argue for generations whether Elias Vorn had doomed humanity or saved it. But when Caliph took his hand, her grip strong and steady, one truth was undeniable. The dying warrior had kept her secret, and the human had saved her anyway. The stars beyond the viewport were unfamiliar to Elias Vorn. They burned colder here, sharper, stretched across the black like ancient scars. Valari space was nothing like the orderly, charted corridors of human territory. There were no neat lanes, no comforting beacons, only vastness, silence, and the ever-present sense that this empire had existed long before humanity learned how to crawl between stars. Caliph stood beside him on the observation deck, her posture straight despite the lingering stiffness in her injuries. The bioluminescent markings along her shoulders glowed steadily now, no longer flickering with pain or instability. She was whole again, body and mind aligned. Yet her gaze was distant. You could still turn back, she said quietly. Once we reach the inner systems, there will be no misunderstanding. No mercy for my people if they decide you are a threat. Elias folded his arms, watching a distant nebula slowly drift past. You've had plenty of chances to leave me behind, too. Yes, she admitted. And every one of them troubled me. He smiled faintly. Guess we're even. The Valari capital world emerged from hyperspace like a living monument, vast rings of obsidian cities orbiting a planet veined with glowing rivers of energy. Massive warforms drifted silently in formation, their silhouettes elegant and terrifying all at once. The ship was hailed instantly. Caliph straightened, every trace of vulnerability vanishing as the warrior returned. Her voice shifted as she responded in her native tongue, authority resonating through every syllable. The response came back almost immediately, sharp, incredulous, then reverent. They know you're alive, Elias said. Yes, she replied. And they're afraid. The landing platform was lined with honor guards, weapons lowered but ready. At their center stood the Valari Empress. She was taller than Caliph, her presence commanding in a way that made Elias instinctively lower his gaze. Her eyes, mirrored gold, like Caliph's, settled on him with unsettling intensity. This is the human, the Empress said, her voice echoing not through sound alone, but through something deeper. The one who denied us victory. Caliph stepped forward instantly. The one who denied us annihilation. A murmur rippled through the gathered warriors. Elias forced himself to meet the Empress's gaze. I didn't come here to negotiate, he said evenly. Or to beg. No, the Empress replied. You came because you could not walk away. She turned to Caliph. You carried our greatest weapon within you, our enemy's greatest fear. Why did you not let yourself die? Caliph hesitated. For the first time since Elias had met her, she bowed her head. Because he treated me as a person, she said. Not a weapon. Not a threat. Not a secret to be torn from my mind. Silence fell. Heavy, absolute. The Empress studied Elias again, this time longer. Human, she said slowly, your kind has ended wars by force, by deception, by extermination. Why choose mercy? Elias thought of the canyon, the blue blood on stone, the moment he knelt instead of firing. Because someone had to stop proving the worst things we believe about each other. The Empress closed her eyes. When she opened them, the air itself seemed to shift. The war ends, she declared. Gasps echoed across the platform. Not because we are weak, the Empress continued, but because we have learned something dangerous today. Compassion is not exclusive to one species. Caliph exhaled shakily, as if she'd been holding her breath for months. The transmission that followed was broadcast across human and Valari space alike. Two figures stood side by side, a warrior and a human, speaking not of surrender, but of survival together. Some called Elias a traitor. Others called him a hero. He didn't care. Weeks later, he stood again beneath an alien sky, this one warmer, gentler. Caliph approached him, no armor this time, her movements unburdened by war. You could return home, she said. Your people would welcome you eventually. And you, he asked. She looked at the horizon. I am no longer merely a weapon. Or a conduit. I must decide who I am. She turned to him then, golden eyes steady. Stay. He didn't answer immediately. Then he took her hand. History would record that the war ended through diplomacy, through shared understanding, through a fragile peace born of necessity. But Elias knew the truth. It ended when a dying warrior refused to reveal her secret. And a human saved her anyway.